Well, welcome back from the Christmas holiday and the first night of Hanukkah. Well, actually, now it's the second night of Hanukkah. We have a relatively quiet weather going on in the eastern part of the United States. We have severe weather tonight in parts of Texas and Louisiana. We're going to talk about that. There's a storm system that's coming into the northwest coast that's bringing heavy rain and heavy snow to some areas in the northwest and in the northern Rockies. We'll move on to the weekend, the arrival of the new year, do a little long range speculation, all of that coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And of course, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast very easily if you shop on Amazon. Use our referral link pinned to the top of the chat board. Search and shop and get your stuff. And Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin out of Amazon's pocket and not yours. They do that because we sent you there. So we appreciate your support by shopping our referral link on Amazon. So good evening, everybody. And I hope everybody, right off the bat, hope everybody had a great holiday. I have a bit of a head cold that's been sort of coming and going. This afternoon, it started to come back. So hopefully, I'll be able to get through this. Joe Rayo is still off. He's tending to some family matters, so he'll be back on Sunday here at 7:35 p.m. And also want to say a big hello to everybody on the chat board. And for those of you who are watching in the background, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We are just back from a 1 week vacation, and we are going to be next on Sunday at 7:35 p.m. Normally, our schedule is Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. with the occasional Friday and Saturday when there are storms around. So do subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And of course, if you like the show, by all means, hit the like button. So, very quietly, and I guess maybe a bit surprisingly, that cold front that moved through Tuesday morning across eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England left a coating to an inch or a bit more in some spots, and that was enough to give New York City, anyway, its first white Christmas since 2009. Christmas morning, there was still an inch on the ground at the park as they measured. So this is the Weather Service saying it, folks. I'm sure most of it has either melted or evaporated by now, even though it hasn't really been all that warm. The nights have been pretty cold, but the days have not really been all that warm. But still, uh, in the shade, it's probably still there. In sunny areas, it's probably mostly gone. And now, of course, we are pointing toward the weekend and the next thing that we're going to have to deal with, and that's uh, the arrival of the new year on Tuesday night. And we've got a few weather systems that are going to be playing through with regards to some rain. And in fact, as some of that rain arrives late tonight, I'm sorry, late Friday night, early Saturday morning in areas north and west of the coast, there could be a little bit of freezing rain for a few hours. So the Weather Service has always taken a preemptive winter weather advisories for a handful of counties in northern New Jersey and in northeastern Pennsylvania. There'll probably be a few more added to the mix tomorrow morning. We'll see how that all goes. And this we're going to warm up going through the weekend and into next week. But after this, the system that comes through on New Year's Eve, there is a decidedly colder pattern that is shaping up for the long range. I think that's probably a given here. Whether it comes with storm systems down the road is something that really remains to be seen. So I would just say prepare yourselves for an onslaught of snow maps on social media from GFS and European runs that are going to be doing all sorts of things over the next 2 weeks. And James Spann, those of you who are in the South, in Alabama, know who he is. A great TV meteorologist and big severe weather guy. I read a post of his, and I mean, he pretty well sets it down. Anything, there is no way beyond the 5 to 7 day period. There is no skill in forecasting anything specific as far as storms are concerned. you can glean an idea of what the general pattern is going to look like. But as far as the day-to-day stuff, it's just nonsense. So if you look at what models are doing, you can jump up and down all you want about this ensemble, this model, this signal, this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, there is very little skill beyond the 5 to 7 day time frame. Again, as far as specifics are concerned, you can kind of get an idea of what kind of pattern you're going to be in, but that doesn't really tell you very much as far as the day to day goes. As I see some of the snow lovers are popping up here and there, and that's good. It's always good to see. And this is our time of year, I guess. So let's get going. I'm going to try to hang on myself as long as I can with this sort of nasally situation that I'm dealing with. But with a little help, I should be able to uh, manage my way through it. So, also with me being by myself, I could put up the myself in a little box in the corner as opposed to just disappearing behind the screen. I actually feel fine. It's just up here. Okay, so that's the issue. Yes, I have my Vicks, Steve Lapointe. It's right by my bedside, so I'm all set for that. Um, so, but it's not like I have a fever. I don't have a sore throat. It's just right up in here. And I have not had a cold. I've had COVID twice, but I have not had a cold in almost 5 years. Okay, and now this is my second one in 4 weeks. So go figure. I can tell you this. Here in North Georgia, there are a lot of people that have some, a cold or something going on. So it's all over the place. And I suspect it's probably the case just about everywhere right now. Okay, so we've got some stuff going on. There are, as I said, there are some counties in northeastern PA and northwest New Jersey, specifically Sussex, Warren, and Morris counties in northern New Jersey, and I'm going to guess Carbon and Monroe counties, and maybe a couple of others in eastern Pennsylvania for this idea that there could be a little bit of freezing rain late tomorrow night and Saturday morning. It's warming up when you have a lot of this time of year when you have a lot of dense fog advisories, and you see that covering a large number of states: Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Northwest Missouri, all of Wisconsin, Northern Illinois, and just about all of Minnesota in dense fog advisories. We have a tornado watch that is up, and that's the area in yellow in East Texas and in Western Louisiana. And there are some flash flood warnings that we're seeing here in the dark reds on the East Texas side. Haven't seen any tornado warnings yet. Also, probably a few severe thunderstorm warnings that have popped up from time to time. But it's been kind of a busy severe weather night considering it's December 26th, Boxing Day. Winter storm warnings covering a good portion of southeastern Idaho, central Utah, a couple of counties in north central Colorado and south central Wyoming, also in north and western Wyoming. We have winter weather advisories in the Sierra Nevadas and the Cascades. We have avalanche warnings up for the Cascades up in Washington State, and a few winter weather advisories that are going on in northeastern Nevada and also in northeastern Montana. So, looking at the satellite loop, you kind of see the parade that we're going to be dealing with here. Excuse me, folks. Hmm. Nothing like clogging up in the middle of your broadcast. But we've got three storm systems that are on the satellite loop. The east is quiet from Maine down to Florida. There are some clouds in the southeast. We have here in the southeast, by the way, what's known as the wedge. And that's when you have a big high that's building down the eastern seaboard, and you wind up getting northeast and east winds. And that just creates a lot of cloud cover. It also tends to keep temperatures very much on the chilly side. And we saw that today in many areas in northern Georgia, anyway, where it didn't get much above the low and mid 50s. And tomorrow, it's probably not going to be getting out of the 40s. But we do have this lead shortwave trough, low pressure, and a cold front. And of course, there's a nice little warm sector that's developed ahead of it with tropical moisture coming in from the Gulf. And that's producing showers and thunderstorms and the severe weather that I pointed to a little bit earlier. We also have another weather system that is moving through. It's on the east side of the Rockies now, and that's basically pushing the first one along. The first one is going to weaken somewhat as it moves northeastward, but some of that moisture is going to survive. The second one in the middle, that is going to bring rain and maybe some heavier rain Sunday night. I'm sorry, later, so during Sunday and into Sunday night. A short break follows, and then we're going to have this current weather system that's coming in to Washington State, and that's going to be the weather maker for New Year's Eve. Probably in terms of the timing, it could very well be from mid to late afternoon Tuesday through the early morning hours of Wednesday. So, folks going to wherever they drop balls for New Year's in excuse me, in the Northeast, are probably going to be doing it with some rain. The radars tonight, again, nothing in the east, so we'll take a look at what's happening from Arkansas on southward. It's pretty well loaded with rain and some heavier rain, especially across Arkansas. And then you get into the thunderstorms in Louisiana. There was a little, just very briefly, you see a little red box pop up there on the Louisiana side of the Texas-Louisiana border. So there was a tornado warning that just flashed and disappeared. And we have a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. The green boxes are all flash flood warnings. So a lot of heavy weather going on from East Texas into western Louisiana. That area again is going to be continuing to move to the east. A little bit of very light activity up in parts of Iowa and southeastern Minnesota, and also a little patch of rain there and along the Illinois-Indiana border, and some scattered showers, by the way, also in parts of South Carolina into southernmost North Carolina. Then we've got out in the west where we've got rain coming in to California right now. It's probably getting ready to fall as snow in the Sierra Nevadas. More like patchy to scattered showers further north in northern uh, Oregon and Washington State. Maybe a little bit of snow going on in some of the higher elevations. And we've got some snow up into northern Idaho, western Montana, and also through parts of eastern Nevada and Utah and southeastern Idaho, getting ready to move into western Wyoming. The Storm Prediction Center has actually, you don't see this too often in December, an enhanced risk and a new tornado watch, by the way, was just issued about a half an hour ago. I think it was a half an hour ago. Yes, 32 minutes ago. So we will give this a look, and you can see uh, southeast Texas, western Louisiana, southwest Louisiana, all under a tornado watch that is going to last until 2 a.m. Central Time. So the severe weather is going to continue there. And we have an enhanced risk, a small area of enhanced risk in East Texas and Western Louisiana. The marginal risk pushes up into northern Arkansas. Going to day two, so this is Friday and Saturday, we have a small area of marginal risk in southeastern Mississippi and southwest Alabama and eastern Louisiana. And day three, with that next weather system that's pushing through, this is for Sunday, this is for Saturday into Sunday, is going to set up maybe for some severe weather and enhanced risk this early in the game across northeast Louisiana, covering much of Mississippi, except the far north and the far south, and into portions of western Alabama. So that's a pretty, it's a pretty strong statement for SPC to put up an enhanced risk on the day three forecast, particularly again because of the time of year. You just don't see severe weather outbreaks like this. And as far as rainfall is concerned, because it is going to be mostly rain in these three events in the east. There's not a whole lot of cold air, clearly. The last of it is pulling out now. We're just sort of left with some what I would refer to as dirty cold air with a dirty high in the Northeast and down into the northern mid Atlantic states, leading to another cool, chilly night tonight. A lot of radiational cooling going on tonight. and a somewhat cold day tomorrow in the 30s for daytime highs. But after that, we're going to start to really scour out the colder air, which is going to have a bit of a tougher time in some of the inland valleys. So a large area of inch and a half to as much as 2.5 inches from Maine all the way down through the Appalachians into the Gulf states, across the deep South, from Georgia to Alabama, northern Georgia, much of Alabama, Mississippi, and some of what's being forecast here is already going on in parts of Arkansas and Louisiana. And in the Pacific Northwest, it seems sometimes that this is just the sort of general forecast that they put up there and just leave it up there without doing much changing. But we're looking at several to many inches of liquid precipitation from Northern California, mainly from San Francisco northward, going up to Oregon and Washington State. And of course, that will probably translate into some heavy snows in the mountains. Speaking of which, I might as well let's take a look at the some of the snowfall forecast map, the digital forecast. I should have set this up earlier, but sometimes I forget to do these things, so we can always do them on the fly here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So here we go, and we'll take it to. Let's do. I'll tell you what. Let's do total new ice first, and this will cover Friday night into Saturday. And you can see what the Weather Service is doing here. So they're showing a fairly large geographic area of a hundredth to 500ths of ice accretion, covering much of eastern and northeastern Pennsylvania, much of northern New Jersey, just west of New York City, and in the Hudson Valley, I mean, even into southern Westchester County, on the edge of some of this. Now, a lot is going to depend on, there's going to be depend on a couple of things. If skies are clear through the first part of Friday night, which is possible, there'll probably be some radiational cooling going on. And then, of course, how fast does the rain get here? If the rain gets in here fast enough, it's going to come in when temperatures are below freezing in a lot of these inland spots. So we're talking about, again, up to about 500ths of an inch of ice accretion. And it extends all the way up through New York State and also through the west side of the Berkshires in Connecticut and Massachusetts and into Vermont. Anytime you know it's warm, if you're going to see ice accretion forecasts going up into northern New England, it's warm. And we even see it here through New Hampshire and into Maine, where we're talking about maybe as much as a couple of tenths of ice accretion. So again, I would expect to see more winter weather advisories probably going up tomorrow uh, in uh, in New Jersey, perhaps adding a few additional counties. I don't know how far east they're going to put them to. Will they go to about New York City? Not sure. But I think in terms of this forecast that they're showing here, it does kind of make sense that that's where they're going with all of that. And again, as far as new snow is concerned, into Sunday, you'll notice on the map there ain't much of anything. Even up in Maine, uh, there isn't much of anything as far as snow accumulations are concerned. In the lakes, very little there too. And then we go out in the west. Now, this is where, of course, with all that Pacific moisture coming in, we're seeing some pretty hefty amounts in terms of feet. In fact, I don't know where that is. I love when they put these prints up here and you're trying to figure out, okay, what is this location that they've got 142 inches forecast? I think that may be one of the highest numbers I've seen. We got a 142 in the Cascades in Washington State, and then a little further south in an area that's to the southeast of Portland, they've got a 133 inches being forecast there. So again, this is typical of the mountain action that goes on in the West Coast. None of the major cities up and down the West Coast are really going to see very much. Also, looking at, and then this, by the way, takes us right through 7 p.m. Sundays, so it covers a lot of time. But we do also see some sizable amounts throughout Idaho, into western Wyoming, into eastern Idaho as well, down through parts of Utah, and lessens up a little bit, but still in that purplish area, we're talking, 6 to 10, maybe 6 to 12 of accumulation, not out of the question. and also in the western part of Colorado, where we're seeing a few double-digit amounts showing up there. So let's look at the upper air first. As I'm just gonna just give me 1 second here so I can unclog. At least if Joe were here, I could I could let him talk, and then I can sort of pull myself away from the mic and clear the nasal passages. So we have a bit of a ridge here in the eastern part of the United States. The flow across the country is of course it's coming pretty much west to east and going up from the southwest to the northeast here. So that really does not allow for cold air. There's no real cold. There's no cold Canadian connection. Here's tonight's shortwave in North Texas that is generating all the severe weather and lifting up to the northeast. Then we've got more troughing here as energy continues to come in to the western part of the United States. By the way, in the southern part of California and in the southwest, it's mostly dry. We're not really seeing much of anything. It's the northern part of California on northward. Now, over time, of course, we're going to see this ridge gradually shift eastward, and the upper air is going to be undergoing a grinding change over the next week as the trough position starts to shift in the to the eastern part of the United States, and the ridge position begins to build out in the west. And you see this system here again for Friday night and Saturday. That first short wave kind of gets lost. There's a little indentation in the flow there, but it's weakening as it's moving northeastward because you have that second energy that's coming in, and this is going to be a little stronger. You got that cutoff low there in Michigan come Sunday night. So that's going to bring in a decent line of rain later Sunday into Sunday night, early Monday morning. It should be mostly gone. And then a bit of a break. And now you've got this third trough that begins its approach. And you see the short wave, that little V that's crossing Iowa and Missouri and then into the Ohio Valley. So that brings rain for later Tuesday and Tuesday night. And then after that, the whole trough position begins to shift into the eastern part of the United States, and this is where we start to get more shots of cold air. That has been the signature so far this young winter season, and certainly during the month of December, we've had a few shots of cold air that have come down, particularly in the last couple of weeks. So we're going to go back to that, and then over time, I think the question is going to be with the flow where Canada is opened up, sending down cold air, is there going to be energy flying eastward? And the models are been going in a couple of different directions with this. There's some energy around next Friday, the third and the fourth, and you see it here. But this trough, the way this trough is set up, very positively tilted northeast, southwest. So this would tend to favor that if something were to form late next week, it would probably wind up getting pushed out east northeast and staying suppressed to the south. Because again, you notice how the trough at the angle there, the axis there, that northeast southwest positively tilted trough, just tends to sweep systems, surface systems eastward rather than lifting them northward. That goes out, and then you got more shortwave energy that comes into the west. And now we're into the week beginning Monday, January 6th, and we're starting to see, stronger troughs and shortwaves that are dropping into the eastern part of the United States. And here's a fairly, impressive one that is approaching the East Coast around the 9th or 10th. And we're holding this trough in the eastern part of the United States. We're also at the same time holding this ridge in the western part of the United States. And again, if we look at this as I line it up, if you just, I always say you got to follow the flow, see where your air is coming from. So we're talking about air that's coming up straight up from the Arctic regions, sweeping down through Canada and into the eastern part of the United States, and getting all the way down into the southeast and even into Florida. Ridge in the west is pretty strong. You've got troughing in the Aleutians and an upper low on the westernmost Aleutians, also one in the Gulf of Alaska. And there's general troughing down on 180, along 160 west. So you've got trough at 160, ridge at 120, trough at 80ish. And that if you're a winter weather lover, this is really what you want to see. And there's from what I'm seeing here, at least now this will takes us to January 11th. It looks to me like we're going to be in this sort of pattern here at least through the first half of January and maybe even beyond that. A lot of other favorable things are going on. A few people, on various social media posts are talking about the Madden-Julian oscillation. And now that I figured out how to read this the darn map the right way, but we are coming out right now. We're going into phase 7. And the general idea is that with the Madden-Julian oscillation, you want to be in phases 8, 1, and 2 for winter weather. I believe 4, 5, and 6 are generally warm phases. It's interesting to me that we've actually had some rather cold air come into the eastern part of the United States while we're seeing us in what's supposed to be a quote warm phase. So that's an interesting um, development, and it drives to something that I've said many times that there's you can't look at one particular thing. You got to look at a whole bunch of factors, and I think that may have a lot to do with the way the polar vortex is set up and how stretched, how it's been stretching back and forth, and it's kind of tilted in a way that the flow would favor colder air coming into the United States. And again, with the MJO getting into that phase 8 and 1, it doesn't stay in 7 very long. 7 tends to be a stormy-ish phase, uh, and we're in that beginning tomorrow and into early next week, and then right after that we go into phase 8 and phase 1. The middle part where the circle is often known by folks. They call it the circle of death, and what that means is when the oscillation gets into that circle, it's kind of in a neutral place. It's neither favorable or unfavorable. It's just sort of in no man's land. And the green line is the mean position of all the ensembles. And if you look, more of the ensembles are well into the eight and phase 8 and phase 1 of the MJO. Then the rest of them seem to be in what we would call again the circle of death. What they call the circle of death. I'm not a big follower of this. I mean, I've had, I occasionally will look at it, and I read people who like know this far more than I do. But we're in that winter phase that you want to see, which would be 8 and 1. Again, no guarantee that any kind of snowstorm is going to happen, but it's supportive. If the troughs and ridges line up in the right places, you could wind up with something. So again, prepare yourselves over the next week or beyond. That we're going to see model runs do all sorts of things, from run to run. There 1 minute, gone the next, is usually how it works. So don't get wrapped up, and don't expect to get answers to any questions beyond the 5 to 7 day time frame. So here's our situation for the weekend, as we watch this, the lead moisture kind of try to stream in Friday night into Saturday morning. Again, colder inland areas in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. If it gets cold enough, there'd be a little bit of freezing rain at the start. Eventually, the temperatures are going to warm. And then we've got the second low behind it, and that runs to the Great Lakes. And this is going to bring a steadier rain, probably Sunday afternoon, Sunday night into early Monday morning. It looks like most of it's really gone by daybreak. And now here comes the third system, and this is for New Year's Eve, the low that comes out of Wyoming and runs into Missouri and then heads up into western New York. And you've got rain later Tuesday afternoon into Tuesday night. Looks like it's pulling out a little bit, maybe around midnight or so, or shortly after that, as the low lifts up to the northeast. And now here comes a cold high, spreading cold air eastward. You'll notice that there's moisture and a little bit of a wave that is off in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and you see some rain in parts of Alabama and Georgia. Actually, that rain is in some of the right on the edge of the colder air, so maybe there might even be a little bit of snow on the northernmost fringe of this. But again, this was that positively tilted trough, so you can see what happens. All of this stuff basically gets suppressed to the southeast. You get the cold air is going to just overwhelm everything. later next week and into next weekend. And then as we move along, there's on this particular run around the 9th or 10th, you see bitter cold air coming down into the plains and into the northern Rockies and spreading across into the western lakes. And then the models try to generate some kind of storm system. The European and the GFS actually do it. They both do this for roughly the same time frame, which is around January 9th, January 10th. And that seems to be the general idea here. And of course, the fact that the model on this run at 342 hours is showing you what is almost an absolutely perfect setup for a developing low moving up the East Coast, right there should tell you that it's probably not going to look anything like this, and it's going to be gone or very suppressed in the next couple of runs. So I wouldn't pay any, I really wouldn't pay much attention in terms of the specifics. But the main takeaway is after we get through a New Year's Day, we're going to go into a wintry. January is going to start off with a wintry first half, and with a little bit of luck for snow lovers, you'll get some chances along the way, and I think maybe even me here in North Georgia will get some chances. Although, actually, as said a number of times, it does snow here during the winter months. It's not something that's weird. It's climate here in North Georgia is significantly colder than the climate in Atlanta. It's 100 miles to the north, and I'm 2,200 feet up. So there you go. Uh, I am going to wrap it up here because my nasal passages are telling me I need to wrap this up here. We'll be back. Joe will be back on Sunday, and so will I. I will hopefully have this out of my system by then. So keep your fingers crossed. But it was good to come on. That's probably the longest time in the 6 years that I've been doing this. This is probably the longest stretch of off time that I have ever taken. Okay. 3 days, 4 days, I've done. But this time was the first time we did seven. And you know what? Every once in a while, um, you need to do that. Because if I were still working, I'd get my 4 weeks vacation every year that I could just disappear or whatever the time, however much the time was. But when you're doing this on your own, you don't get to do that. So that's a slight downside. And I like the fact that I'm, able to do this. I'd much rather be doing this on my own than to be working for somebody. I mean, I discovered that a number of years ago. It was just a matter of time. But it was nice having 7 days of no show. But don't forget, I still post on my website every day. If you go to the community page here on my YouTube channel, there's always a post there. There's at least one post every day with regards to what's going on. And plus, I do a weather in a minute video in the morning, and sometimes I'll do a weather in five. I used to try to do those every day, but that's not always an easy thing to do, especially when the weather's darn quiet. So I'm kind of now saving that for when there is actual weather going on. So they haven't disappeared entirely, but you can just check the video library. You'll always find something. And of course, there's my subscription site, which is patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee. So whenever I do videos, I post them there. There's no commercials, and also there's some additional analysis that's posted there, and additional model guidance that I might put up that you won't necessarily see anywhere else. So I'm getting my VIX. Thank you, Steve Lapointe, and we'll see everybody here on on Sunday. I don't have time, Ruben Fairchild, to read comments because when I'm by myself, I have to do all the things that I usually do, though I can only focus my eyes in one place. When Joe Rayo is here, one or both of us can can read the comments. And yes, Tom, actually, I had a a big cup of hot green tea with no milk. I don't know how people put milk in tea, but that's me. Um, I did I try to avoid dairy uh, when uh, when I got a situation like this. Okay, have a great night, and we'll see you on Sunday. Night, night.